Speaking of throwing more money at the problem does not always solve it. California, not doing so well, and we've thrown more money at the problem. And as I alluded to, you did write a whole editorial on this. Tell us, pun intended, what grade California gets for its test scores in the past year and how much money we've spent on public education.
Oh, it's an F. So I was in the legislature working for John Warlock at the time as his chief of staff when the whole pandemic happened. And so I watched as the legislature panicked, shut down the schools, kind of let the governor run roughshod over them as he had his emergency powers for 2 or 3 years. And when they did that, I thought, this will be interesting. We'll see what happens. I had kids in school. At that point in time, I had 4 of my kids in school. And I remember the teacher saying, we're not going to give assignments or homework out anymore. And I was like, what are you talking about? And one English teacher was really progressive, crazy person in my son's high school. He was a sophomore at the time. He said, well, the legislature has told us we can't take tests anymore. And I wrote him back. I said, I work in the legislature. That's not what we said. And he's like, oh, like he didn't know, And so I think the teachers kind of gave up. And this is not impugning the teachers. This is just a fact. They went with a really dramatic shift in focus. A lot of them didn't want to do the online stuff or virtual classes. There was the masks and the in-class stuff and the 6 feet spacing, all the other garbage. But when that all went through, people thought, okay, we're out of the pandemic itself, whatever you want to call that phase. Hopefully things will improve. We've thrown hundreds of billions of dollars in these ESSER funds, the federal funds that came in. Again, another opportunity for federal funds to come in to mitigate COVID in the classroom, new air filtration systems and whatever else. Well, guess what? All that money came in with strings attached and scores didn't go up. In fact, they got worse in a lot of places. And a lot of our kids are 1 or 2 or even 3 years behind where they should be. And you can blame some of that, again, on the governor shutting the schools down. But the rest of that can be blamed on the unions who have not allowed for any competition within the public school system. And so it depends on what metric, and we can go through 1,000 different metrics, but basically less than 50% of kids are literate or numerate at grade level in California. And when you compare that throughout the rest of the country, we're in the bottom tier, the bottom quartile of all school districts, or of all states, and one of them shows us to be number 49th in the nation in literacy. Now, we were number 50 when I was running for state superintendent. We improved, quote unquote, to 49th, but we didn't improve. New Mexico just simply got worse than we did, right? And so we went from spending $127 billion in 2022 to $129 in 2023 to $134 in 2024. But here's the kicker. All those school years, we were losing population. So we have lost, again, like I said earlier, 420,000 kids out of the public school system. And they've gone to different places. Some have, and those numbers include charter schools too. So some of those have gone to private schools, some have gone to homeschool, and some have just left the state entirely. But when you lose that number of students and yet you increase the amount of money you're throwing into the system, and you had all these federal pandemic funds that came in, where did that money go?
I seriously want to audit the California books.
Where did it go? And so when you ask different school districts, they're very cagey about those dollars because they couldn't use them to take care of, pension unfunded liabilities or other, personnel costs. It had to be very specific. And a lot of progressives love to do this. We want to do this special program, and it can't be like anything else you've done before. It has to be innovative, except it's not innovative. They drew something up on the back of a napkin, and the kids suffered in the meantime. And so that's a problem.
So in this new world where the Department of Education could be eliminated or downgraded, what is a state like California? I mean, it just seems like it comes back to this state level where California just has to get its act together, and that's up to voters and putting the right people in place, right? Like it's up to us to figure it out.
One of the things I learned in 2022 when I was running statewide is that there were 2,500 local school board candidates running at the same time. And so I started to just collect and adopt, connect with a lot of these candidates Through one of our programs at California Policy Center, we had what we call CLEO, California Local Elected Officials. And Mary Barkey, who was at the time the president of the Orange County Board of Education, there's 58 county boards of education. There's 944 school districts in the state. She and I were sitting one day talking about the elections coming up, and she said, we've got to do something to train these people. I said, I agree. So we created this candidate academy. We started training people. We trained over 400 people. Out of that 400, over 200 took out papers to run for office. Out of that 200 that ran, 106 of them won. And okay, that doesn't sound like a lot out of the 2,500, but 106 who went through our system, who we trained and mentored, and we held their hand. We didn't run their campaigns. We're a 501c3, so they did their own thing. But we gave them the tools to be successful. Well, you fast forward, most of those people that won are the ones you see in all the headlines. The Chino Valley, the Temecula, Murrieta, the Rockland, like go down the list, Dry Creek. These school districts were the ones that were going out and doing the work to reform their systems. Yeah, parental notification, curriculum, discipline, school safety, teacher tenure, graduation requirements. These are things that we help them with. And so this last year, we were not as intentional on the training candidates. We had the program, it's online, so people can go to calelecteds.org. You can check it out. We created another, what we call academy called Leadership Academy, which would train people once they get to office how to be good public servants. And it's for local government officials generally, but school board trustees are in that bucket. But recently, Mary and I created another academy. We call it our Strategy Academy. What's the first 100-day plan? And so all these people that got elected last time around, we have a whole new cadre of people coming in now. And they're going in now with tools and resources necessary to take on their entrenched bureaucracy, their superintendent who has been doing things his own way for a long time, the crazy union leaders that have been running roughshod for the district, for the complacent, other administrators. They're coming in and they're moving the needle. And I was a little depressed after watching a few recalls happen this last year. I had 6 friends, 6 of those people I helped get elected. They got recalled. It was terrible. And you would recognize some of the names, but a few of them ran again, and a few of them had people who ran behind them. And I was watching the results come in. We flipped a lot of school boards this year, and I'm excited and heartened by that. So yes, will the federal department leave some holes? Will putting it on the back of the California State Legislature and the Superintendent of Public Instruction, the State Board of Education, will that be a good idea? I don't know. They're all crappy, right? But I'm really satisfied with the tone and tenor, the strength, the resilience of these local school board trustees that are coming in to do a good job. And I think that once we have full ownership over this stuff, I really believe that our school boards will be vastly improved. And if they don't, guess what? People will have other systems. I see micro schools becoming a bigger part of our lives. Charter schools are still continuing to grow and to thrive. There are options here in California. I'm not a doom and gloomer for this state. I think it can work. My kids, the 4 youngest, are all still in public school. And we love our district. We're very involved there. My wife and I both have the principals and the superintendent on speed dial. We have relationships there. We know the school board trustees. We have a relationship. So I encourage people to think about it that way instead of if the federal government's not there, then how are my kids going to get, educated? We have been doing education wrong for 150 years in California since the progressive movement started. I think we're on the verge of a whole new generation of education. And it requires people to be thoughtful and to release the nostalgia of yesteryear. I'm a public school graduate myself, so is my wife. The schools in the 80s and 90s are not what they are now. So as soon as we can release that, and then also encourage our older generations, our grandparents who don't have their kids in school, but their grandkids are in school or their neighbors are in school, to encourage them to get more involved and participate in ways that they probably didn't think about years ago. I think that will move the needle in California. And California is actually a very conservative state that's being ruined by 20,000 loudmouths. The squeaky wheels get the grease, and unfortunately, they're annoying. But we have a good, decent, hardworking, resilient people in California. They're innovators, they're dreamers, they're thinkers, they're renegades. I think we can make things happen. And so people can find more about me on Twitter at Lance Lands. They can, or X, whatever you want to call it. They can go to californiapolicycenter.org. And this next year, we're going to be very involved in watching the legislature and grading them on the decisions they make about education and budgets and other things that are happening in our state. So please pay attention.
Hey, thanks for checking out the California Underground podcast. If you enjoyed that clip, make sure you subscribe, like, share, review, comment, all that stuff that helps with the algorithm, helps people find us more. And if you want to learn more, you can always listen to our full podcast at Apple, Spotify, Google, all those different places that you basically find podcasts. Or if you just want to keep watching clips, you can check out clips here, or you can subscribe to our channel right here, somewhere in here.